Natissa here, and welcome to You Can Grow Too. Not only do I have my dog at my feet, so you're probably going to see her throughout the video, but I'm also surrounded by lots of leggy seedlings. What is a leggy seedling? A plant or seedling that is leggy is just a long spindly plant. It's not supposed to grow that way. It's just a plant looking for light, and it's not getting enough of it. So it is stretching up as high as it can go through whatever it is growing around in order to try to get that light. Maybe it's growing behind a plant in some shade and it's just trying to stretch beyond that shade to get the light. Maybe, like in my case, I have multiple seedlings growing in a small seed starting container, and they're all shading each other out, and they're trying to reach for the light, which in my indoor growing light system was not positioned close enough to the seedlings to begin with, so I think that's where part of my trouble lies. But basically, it is because lack of light that these plants will be leggy, that these seedlings will be leggy. And here she be, the Minu, the one. I told you you would see her. The potential problems of a leggy plant is that it won't be sturdy enough. It's just too spindly, too thin to really hold itself up, which can make for problems along the way if you are, growing any plant, because its structure, its body, the body of the plant is not growing as well and strong as it should. The biggest thing you can do to save your seedlings is do what they call burying them deep. Some plants, like your tomatoes, your eggplant, peppers, those are some of the examples I have here in front of me, they can develop roots along their stem, which is a great bonus because if they can root along their stem, that means more of a root system and more chances to absorb moisture and nutrition that they need, and overall can make a stronger plant, while also creating it to be sturdy, because if you were to bury some of these plants at ground level, they are going to not be able to handle the fruit or just the growth of the leaves or anything that comes its way. Even a bit of breeze could be a problem. And then there's some plants that I have in front of me that you can bury the stem, you can bury it deep, and it's not going to grow roots at the stem as some of the plants I had just mentioned, but it is going to provide a sturdy plant instead of a leggy one as it grows. And sometimes that's really all you need. We are basically just trying to get these plants strong enough so they can produce for us very well this coming season. Some of the plants I have in front of me that you can bury the stem of, but it's not going to produce a root system along it, but it is going to provide stability and strength for your leggy seedling. And the examples I have in front of me are the cabbage and broccoli and a kohlrabi. That is what you harvest, the stem. And it'll be interesting to see if we can make that not so leggy, because you're burying the stem and that's the part you eat. But again, we're going to see in this video what happens. So now I'm going to get you in close so you can see what I'm going to do to save these leggy seedlings. So the first example that I am going to show you is a very common one. It is the tomato. And this tomato plant is not as leggy as some I've had in the past, but still, this one here, it does have a long stem. It still does, and I would really like to bury this deep. And as you can see, I already planted 3. So I'm just going to show you what I had done here. All these tomato seedlings had long stems, and I just buried them deep to where about my finger is. And I could have gone deeper, but I dug a hole, pulled the plant out of its plant cell. And first I did water the hole, because when you're burying your plants deep, that means the root system is further down and it's gonna need water and moisture and nutrition. So you got to keep that in mind as you bury deep. But as I did, I also mulched around the plant, as it is always wise to do, especially with tomato plants, because you don't want their foliage to get dirty and wet. And when you do bury deep, with tomatoes especially, your branches, your lower branches are going to touch the ground more, and you need to make sure they are not touching. And what I like to do is I do come by and I do cut some of the lower branching before I bury deep, so that way we won't have any leaves touching the ground, which is, like I said, very important to prevent disease. next leggy seedling we are going to save is the jalapeno pepper. And very similar to the, whoa, see that? Very tall, very leggy it is. You can see the bend. It is not strong at all, but you can also see where it is at ground level. If we didn't plant these seedlings deep, we would be planting it like this. And can you imagine this plant trying to hold peppers? No, I don't want to try to imagine that. So we're going to do what we did with those eggplants. I'm just going to give you an example. I'm going to pop these out. It's a tangled mess. That's the thing with leggy seedlings as well. They just really get tied up among each other. And, you know, that is definitely not ideal for it. It is really wound up in there. Yay, we did it. All right, so we got the jalapeno peppers out of there, but yeah, you can really see the legginess. It is really, really dangling. So we are going to do what we did, like I said, to the eggplant and just divide these plants. And not all plants can be divided this way, or some plants can really struggle when you do this to their root system. But there's some plants that can really bounce back from it, and peppers is one of them, and the eggplants and the tomatoes. I do this actually every season when I grow them. This is how I plant so many at the start and choose the best plants. But here we go. We're dividing them up. Dividing them up again. Ooh, maybe just a little gentle wiggle, gentle tease. Whoop, there we go. 3 separate plants. Actually, I'm going to do something different. Well, as far as the examples I'm showing you. Ideally, I would do all of these plants in a larger container. I just don't have enough seed starting mix to do it the way I want to, but you know, I really do believe it's going to work out. That's what this channel is about. It's kind of just using what we have, and I get what I can, but right now this is what I have. So this one I'm just going to do as an example of what I would want to do. Larger container so I can bury it deep, because that's what we're doing, trying to rescue these seedlings. But as we are doing a lot of these 6 cells, it's still going to help even though these are smaller, because again, like I said, they are growing together in this small space, and that's going to create legginess because they're reaching for the light that they are not getting. So the next best thing, even if I can't get all the, you know, seed starting mix I want right now, just planting them separately in these is going to help. And then when we plant these outside, we can still plant the plant deep into the garden, into the ground, so that way it can become sturdy. This is just, like I said, this is just trying to help the situation right now so we can save our leggy seedlings. So with the example that I have, that I wish I had more of, but we are going to create a nice deep hole for this jalapeno pepper. My hole is probably right around here. And I'm going to take this seedling, this leggy seedling. Look how bent he is. He's bent, he's fallen over, he's reaching for that light. But we're going to bury him deep. Deep into the hole he goes. And we're just going to bury the stem around him. And here this is. Half of the stem of this pepper plant is buried, and this is going to not only root along the stem, which is nice, it's a bonus, it's going to give it a better root system, but it's going to give it stability because it is such a leggy seedling, and that is what we're trying to do. And like I said, this is what you want, is a larger pot to do this, but we're going to continue rescuing best we can. Here is another leggy seedling that will root along the stem, and it is our eggplants. And you can see like a ton are growing together within these cells. So again, they're stretching, they're reaching for the light. And actually, I mean, they're decently strong, but we do want to bury them a little deeper just to give them extra stability. So I'm going to give you just an example of that. Well, and I'll tell you, they do need some water right now. There we go. Just gently. So there you go, 4 separate plants. And I'm going to take this, and like I said, this is just an example. So I'm going to take my bamboo stick and I'm swirling it down pretty far Not all the way to the bottom because I need that bottom to be covered so it can develop its root system. I am drilling this bamboo stake probably part way. There we go. That should do. Alrighty. Let's move all these little guys out of the way. And I'm probably going to have to make that hole a lot wider actually, because this is the root system and we do want to keep that intact best we can. And my attempt is, because these are just growing so close together, I mean, look at this, so close together. I would need a larger cell to help give these seedlings space, but this is the next best way to do it. So we're at least giving them some space. So I'm going to just widen up that hole a little bit more. You might need to even dig some of it out, possibly. That's very possible. And just plant it in as deep as you can get it to go. Press it in. Yeah, I wish I could have gone a little deeper. I could have gone maybe, what is that, like a ½ an inch more. But like I said, it's at least giving it space. I did go a little deeper than what it was. So we're just trying to get some stability into these seedlings so they can hold fruit toward this season, because eggplants, yeah, they're pretty heavy. I'll finish these off camera, but let's get our other examples in for you. And I like to do different things, different ways, or whatever real life brings, because that's real life. And I think most of us are gardening in real life. But here's the example with these nice, taller planting cells. Let's see, we will do the purple broccoli. Look at it just hanging there. Like I said, popping them out. Oh my goodness. Look at how leggy this broccoli plant is. Holy cow. Since this seedling is so leggy, we're going to need to take off, see these lower leaves? Some of these are those cotyledons, those first leaves you see that come up that give nutrition to the seedling. We need to take those off and take this lower true leaf off as well, because we need to bury this. Not covering the crown of the plant. I guess you'd consider this the crown. We don't want it to go that deep. But we just want to bury it, gosh, close to where that curve is. That's a tall order. And no pun intended with this tall, leggy plant. But we're just going to tease it out of there best we can. Oh, careful, careful, best we can. Snip this one off. And snip this little guy. There we go. All right, so we're going to try to bury him toward the bend. Put it on in as deep as we can. I'm going to steal some soil from over here, just for the sake of the example. And just keep burying it all the way up. Up, 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 up. You can see, maybe you can see there's the curl down there. And we're trying to tuck that curl in. Oh gosh, that's the stem, remember? That's the leggy stem. And I'm patting it down, and I'm trying to brush away at what I believe is considered the crown of the plant. That's where the leaves, the new leaves, start growing up off of. Or maybe that's actually taller up here, but you don't want to go that deep. But my goodness, still a bit leggy for sure, but definitely not as bad as before. So we're gonna consider it saved for now. Now I'm gonna do this one perhaps a little differently. And it says green cabbage, but it's actually purple cabbage. And you can see this is done in just, you know, a regular old nursery pot that you might get when you're buying a plant from the nursery. And I just broadcasted seeds in here, and I planned on, which we'll be doing today, is dividing these out. But look at these cabbage seedlings. They are very, very leggy. And just to give you some perspective, see this top area? This is where your head of cabbage grows. Can you imagine planting this at ground level and having a head of cabbage growing from a long, spindly stem like that? It just couldn't support that head of cabbage. So we are going to try, and I admit I feel a little uncertain about what's going to happen here, because these are very young seedlings. A lot of them are just getting their true leaves. And these are the cotyledons, the ones that come out first, and then those are the true leaves right there. Oh, so what we're going to do, what I'm going to try, is I'm going to use this bamboo stick to gently lift out these seedlings best I can. Oh, goodness. Like I said, I try to treat these videos as though you aren't watching because, you know, this is real life, and I think that is more important to show what real life is happening and dealing with what you got and what you know or don't know or figuring things out. And especially when it comes to growing your own food, because if you feel that you need to do that or have some experience in that, you know, hopefully this channel will show you that you can grow too despite all the crazy things of life. So we're going to try to gently lift these out. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. See if I can lift these two out. They're tangled up again. I really want cabbage this season, so I'm feeling very concerned. I'm fighting with this. They're kind of looped together on the top. There we go. All right. Gently lift. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my goodness. We got one. And this is definitely better for this size. And we can still bury them deep. But we are, like I said, it's not as deep as I'd want it to go. But when we do go out into the garden, we'll be able to bury them deep once more. Or theoretically, we really should be able to. So, whoops, I'm trying not to feel concerned about this. But let's go. Let's put that little seedling in. Yeah, that looks really good. Put some seed starting mix in there. Oh my goodness, much better. I don't think I've ever done this to a seedling this young. So yeah, we'll definitely see. You'll actually see sooner than me. And our last example that we will do is on the other side. And it is our kohlrabi. And kohlrabi is actually a plant that you eat the stem of. So for us to be saving leggy seedlings and burying the stem, this will be interesting. But last year I did have leggy kohlrabi seedlings. I just had them growing outside, and I did do the same thing actually when they were larger than this. And we still had kohlrabi, so I'm trying not to be worried about this. And this is not ideal. I mean, look at this. This is not ideal for these plants. But, this is gardening, and we do what we can, and that's all you can do. I'm going to pop one of these cells out, and we'll just tease the plant apart best we can. Oh, we made it. Our kohlrabis. All right, let's move this out of the way first. And kohlrabi has been really resilient for me in the past as far as, root disruption and, having leggy seedlings last year and planting them out, and it still worked. I mean, I do remember some of the bulbs of the stem were not circular as they should be, quote unquote, but they were more oblong, some of them. But it still was a kohlrabi. It was still edible. It, in the long run, it was still fine at the end of the day. So we got our very deep hole down there in the corner, and we will get out our example for you. And something you don't want to do, I'm noticing right now, or it might be hard to see, but where my finger is, that stem of this leggy seedling is actually broken. You can see that, and you don't want that because seedlings are already weak enough. I mean, like, they're just trying to grow, and that, I mean, it maybe can grow out of it, but man, you don't want to try if you don't have to with something like that. So I'm going to try to get this seedling out. I don't see any breakage on it or anything, so gently kind of tease it out of there. Carefully kind of break up the root system. I might break both of these out. And then tease these apart. Oop, there we go. Yeah, here's that broken one. Move that to the side. And this one looks good. Very leggy, as you can see. And the kohlrabi, yeah, the kohlrabi, the part, you can eat the leaves of a kohlrabi, but the stem that swells that you eat is right here. But we're going to bury it up as deep as we can. And let's just gently tap down that root ball. Get some of this extra soil seed starting mix in there. And there we go. And I just noticed that the stem of the leaf is broken. I'll just end up taking that off, and I'm going to be planting more, so this is not the only one, of course, but yeah, that should be all right. I'll remove that leaf. But there you go. Our awkward, leggy kohlrabi seedling finished. Oh my goodness, I will admit that this was a very kind of messy, chaotic process. Looks crazy. I feel nervous about the whole thing, but this is not the first time that I have worked with Leggy Seedlings, so I'm trying to remind myself of that. I'm not finished here by any means, but I am going to go inside, take a little break, come back in, work on this project. And as I do that, I'm going to take you into the future so you can see how these leggy seedlings are progressing. So here's some of the leggy seedlings that have turned out very well. Is this chocolate pepper plant was one of our leggy seedlings. It is a windy day, so this is a good testimony to how strong it is now because we planted it deep. And we even have some peppers that are growing on here as well, and more to come. Another leggy seedling was this eggplant, super duper bushy, and it is producing lots of flowers, but despite all of this wind, it's actually pretty sturdy. But yes, a leggy seedling looking really good. Well, now a very healthy looking plant, I should say. Another pepper I do want to showcase is this jalapeno pepper. This was also another leggy seedling, now a very healthy looking pepper plant. And I did have another one over here that actually has fruit on it, and it was doing very well until my puppy sat on it. My new puppy. But as you can see, even this broken pepper plant is actually healing pretty well. And this was a couple days ago, and it's starting to right itself up. So leggy seedlings and broken plants can still be productive too. All these tomatoes along the row were leggy seedlings. We do have tomato production, so these are healthy plants that had come from leggy seedlings. And in this garden bed, all these garden greens were leggy seedlings. Pretty sturdy, standing straight up despite the windy days we have had. Looking really good. And a great testimony to this are the Ethiopian kales, because they are actually a very tall, I don't know if I'd say spindly, but just a very taller, more kale, mustard-like green, and it's still strong and sturdy. Doggies and puppies at my feet making noises. We'll probably hear a lot about that as time goes on. New puppy in the family. Look at him go. But a very wonderful example of a healthy leggy seedling is this cabbage. Look at it. Maybe a little long stem, but still very strong, holding up again to the wind, it is actually starting to head. So yeah, great testimony to a leggy seedling being a very sturdy, healthy plant. All right, so here we are. To the Romanesco plant, or what I think is a Romanesco plant. It does have a long stem, and this was as well a leggy seedling, and I did plant it deep, did everything that I had done to all the other healthy looking plants that were leggy seedlings. But the difference with this one is I had lemongrass growing next to it, and it was large. I've been meaning to cut it. Finally got it cut, but this was growing in some shade. So it started out growing all right, but with that shade, it was still trying to find more sunlight. So it did grow more leggy than it should have. Something else to consider is, let's pretend this is a Romanesco, and we know for sure, being it is a leggy seedling, chances are the head that might form in the middle may not be to the potential it could be, because it may be leggy. It could tip over with the head on top, but either way, we should get something. Here is my purple sprouting broccoli, and this is what can happen when your seedling is leggy. I don't know if you can tell, but I did bury the stem. It was, you know, very leggy seedling from the hurricanes and everything, and I did bury it deep. And you can see that the stem is buried, or hopefully you can see that. And it did not produce any roots, and I didn't plan for it to, because I don't think this plant can do that. But burying the stem deeper can create stability. But we did have a windy day yesterday, and this plant, it is just flopped on its side. I don't know if you can tell that. But it is starting to right itself up by growing straight up. Should have propped this up a couple days ago, but point being, this is what leggy plants can do if it's not staked up well enough and you have a windy day and it's not sturdy. But like I said, we'll probably still get something. And the last leggy seedling example, there is the leggy stem of the kohlrabi seedling. And here it is lying on its side and starting to bulb up. And right next door to this successful kohlrabi is another, what was a leggy seedling. You can see the stem is super long in this one, and it is righting itself up, and it's still pretty sturdy considering, and it hasn't bulbed up yet, but it's just beginning to. And what I could do is I could put a stake here and tie the kohlrabi to it, so in case we had some wind here, it wouldn't snap or tip over. But still, I consider this a success. Confession time. I have wanted to reshoot the beginning of this video, and believe it or not, that first part you saw in the video was filmed about 6 months ago. But then I thought to myself, what better testimony than to sit there at the beginning with all those leggy seedlings around me and to stand in front of you today, 6 months later, and show you the life of those leggy seedlings and how they didn't turn out so bad. But as life happens, sometimes those seedlings do get leggy, but I do hope that this video showed you that a leggy seedling can still be productive and beautiful too. And if you want to see those leggy seedlings, what they look like today, I am actually working on my first spring garden tour of 2025, so be sure to subscribe. And maybe you're watching this video a little later, be sure to check out the channel because the tour will be there along with many other videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.